So, hello everybody once more. Welcome to the second room of Philosophy Wednesdays. Today is about logical fallacies, as I said. We will be talking a little bit about logical fallacies, but I decided to, use this strategy from now on. I'm gonna leak some logic into every presentation so that we don't have rooms uniquely on logic and bore people out. Hopefully this makes it better for people and it's better for your taste. So, as you see, there's a picture of Donald Trump because I will be using him as an example for our logical fallacies, let's say, presentation or course. Why him? Because, well, it's easy to pick on him. You will very quickly see that he's not the only one by far. Politicians are very, very professional at leaking and sometimes not leaking, just blatantly committing fallacies. And it's just part of our daily lives now. People like it. People wait it. They expect it. They wait for it, right? And this is bad news. But this is the world we live in. So I'm gonna be taking him as an example simply because he's funnier than the others. But all the others commit the same fallacies in the same way, sometimes even worse. So let us begin. What is a logical fallacy? The word fallacy is derived from the Latin, and then in Middle English, fallacy or fallacy, and this means deception. It's a mistake that people do, and it is the use of invalid or otherwise faulty reasoning in the construction of an argument. We know that. The Greek philosopher Aristotle was the first to systematically and write about logic. He wrote. I think he identified something like 13 different fallacies in his work, sophistical refutations, or other work you can refer to in his logic. He identifies some fault in logic, whether in deduction and induction and other things. The other noted development in that field was in India. So we have something called the Nyaya Sutras. And this is a collection, it's a compilation over 7 or 8 centuries of work by consecutive Indian philosophers who also took very deep care in investigating errors in reasoning, let's call them, all right, or logical fallacies. So before we dive into the kinds of fallacies and why they are fallacies, I want to explain something deep about the logic itself. So, the difference between entailment and modeling. Those of you who attended way back in the day, let's say 3 or 4 months ago, our room that we did on logic, they remember this harmonious lavology sort of example that we gave. It's a toy theory. It's not true, of course. But it's a toy theory that we used to model, let's say, love. Okay, and I should be very careful about choosing my words here. I should not use the word model wrongly like that again. But this was what we said back then. And so this is a theory to kind of explain love. We have 3 axioms. What's an axiom? An axiom is just a logical statement that is accepted without proof for our purpose. So here you look and you say love is mutual. Well, that's an axiom that we chose, right? It could not be the case. Love spreads, and everyone loves somebody. So this is our theory of love. We call it harmonious lovology. By the way, shout out to Professor Peter Mekish. This is his example. This is his go-to example, and I'm only using it. Wherever you are, Peter, I love you and I miss you. I'm going to stop here for a second. If you are annoyed by those weird signs next to the English, so HL1, HL2, HL3, if you're annoyed by the weird signs, just drop it, okay? Just forget about them. Just read the English. I'm only including them for the sake if someone is studying logic and wants to refer this presentation in the future, they can, and it is helpful for them as well. By the way, all of these lectures with the Scientific Discourse community will be on YouTube, and the links will be provided in the course of this presentation. So if you have any questions or if you need any reminders, just let me know, and then we can continue. All right, I feel very safe. I'm going to welcome Ben to the stage. Hello, Ben, how you doing? So the question here is is this true about love? Is it true in the world we live in? Does it resonate? And I hope that you guys can see that this is not the case. So just because I chose those axioms or initial statements that I took without proof, just because I chose them, doesn't mean that they represent the truth out there in the world. So now we have a problem. We have a sort of curious situation where my thinking about the world and my conception about the world is not necessarily the case out there in the world. And so we have to split between two universes: the universe of the theory and the universe that we all share. In the universe of the theory, things can be true or false. And in the universe that we all share, in the objective, material, physical universe, things can be true or false as well, independently of what our theory says. And if you remember last time, we kind of drew it very naively, this distinction. We said there's kind of truth one, like truth about the math, about the system, and then truth two, which is about the world. All right, enough about this. Why am I talking about this when I'm talking about logical fallacies? Because now that we have established that the theory that we had here is not the case in the world, I'm going to ask you to kind of give me ideas of where it can be the case. And we're going to call these places where the theory can be the case. And you can look here and see I left the axioms up on the top right of the screen so that you can read them again. You just give me examples of where this theory could be the case. So not out there in the world, not for everybody, but could it be the case in some specific instances? And if that is the case, we're going to call that a model of the theory. So we have the theory, and then we have a model of it. Okay, this is what I mean by modeling. Usually in science, we use the word in the opposite way. We say, oh, we are modeling the physical universe. I'm going to get to that later. Why do we say that? But in logic, you have a theory and you have a model for the theory. You start with the theory first. So if you look at those axioms, do you have any guesses or examples or anything that you can think of where it might be the case? So maybe I can start with the first example. Let's say we have a family of 3 people here, and then let's say this is the father, and this is the mother, and this is the child. The father loves the mother, and I have to look now on the axioms. Love is mutual, so the mother has to love the father back. Love spreads, so if the mother loves the father and the father loves the mother, I'm fine. It has spread. But then the third axiom forces that the child loves somebody. So the child at least loves the mother. And then if the child loves the mother and the mother loves the father, because of love spreading, so that's HL2, the father will love the child as well. And because of this also, you can show that the mother loves the child back and the child loves the father back. This is because HL1 love is mutual. So this is one situation where our theory is correct. It works. In this family, in this model, our theory is fine. It's not fine anywhere else, but in this tiny model, it works. It's not bad. It's a good approximation. Can you think of other situations now? Is it easier? So if this is the mother and this is the father and this is the child again, is there another situation where this theory can also be true? Let's begin with leaving it blank like that. Does this verify our axioms? Yes or no? Is that okay? Is this a valid model? That's what I want to say. So leaving the system blank in model 2 like that doesn't work. And the reason it doesn't work, it's because everyone loves someone. So they must be in a relationship with at least one person. And if you are in a relationship with at least one person, you have 2 options. Either you are in a relationship with someone else, like we have in model 1, or you are in a relationship with yourself. Nothing prevents that, which is what we could have in model 2. And this is also a working model for the theory. Okay? And now there's a third model which combines the two, and there are probably more if you want to think about it. There's the model that combines the two, and I'm drawing it right now. So where everybody just loves everybody and they love themselves as well. So there are 3 working models for this theory. And that's great. That's good news. It means that our theory works sometimes at least. So even this naive, stupid theory that we had here, everybody, love is mutual, love spreads. We know this is not the case every single time, but we know that at least 3 cases could be modeled here. The 3 cases could model this logic with our current axioms. So they're not completely stupid, these axioms. They work some of the time. And of course, my end point is not talking about this theory. This theory is a toy theory to explain what modeling means. We have 3 different cases of reality that model this logic that we have started with. Okay. Now I can give you an example of a logic that does not work, and a model that does not work for this logic is one that looks like this, for example. So this love triangle or love circle is in contradiction with our axioms, because our axioms state clearly that love is mutual, and we can see here that love is not mutual between these 3 people. They are not loving back. So this situation violates our axioms, so it does not model our axioms. That's what we say. I'll stop here and I'll wait for your questions.
Wait, can you explain again, in what way does the love triangle break an axiom? It's not clear to me exactly why that isn't allowed.
Are you with me on the Jitsi? Can you see what I'm writing, Andy?
Yeah, I keep
So I'm talking about
See.
this case right here. This is your question, right? So this circle here, not the one on the right when I say model 3. I'm talking about this one right here. And it breaks the axioms, because the first axiom says love is mutual. And if you look at person A here, person A is loved by person B, but he's not loving back. So this breaks the axioms. This is not a successful model of this theory.
Gotcha.
Okay. So if you look at all 3 models that I have drawn before, you can totally see that all 3 conditions are met. Whereas in the situation I drew below, these conditions are not met. I can give you another example, which is what we started with, the empty case. So this is A, this is B, this is C, and this empty case also violates the axioms. And I can ask you, why does it violate the axioms? Is it because of axiom 1 that has been broken, or is it because of axiom 2, or is it because of axiom 3? If we look at axiom 1, this doesn't violate it. It doesn't violate it because love is mutual just says, if you love me, I love you back. Well, if you don't love me, I don't have to do anything here. So that's fine. Love spreading as well has to do with a condition. If you love me and I love someone else, then you love that person. Well, it doesn't happen in this case. So both of these axioms are satisfied for this model here. But the where it fails in axiom 3. When we say everybody loves someone and we have an empty system, an empty model, this model is not modeling the logic that we have. Okay? So the 3 examples that we mentioned do, but the 2 examples on the bottom do not. They don't work. Why am I talking about all of this? I hope this would be clear in a minute. So on the following slide, you can see that I left the 3 examples that are working. I drew them beforehand. For people following on the Google Docs, you can see the answers for my question here on the slide. And if I move one more slide, so I am on slide 6, here we explain what the difference between entailment and modeling is. And this is essential to understand what a logical fallacy is. So I can prove, and if you remember from that room before that we did, but this is a very easy idea, that if you accept the axioms of our toy theory, harmonious loveology, then you will accept that everyone is loved by somebody. And I will move back to the successful models on slide 5. You can see that everybody is loved by at least one person. And if that person is yourself, that's totally fine. Nowhere is mentioned that you're not allowed to love yourself, so we are good. We can add it as an axiom, in which case model 1 will not work anymore. And so we can totally prove that everyone is loved by somebody. And so what do we write? We write HL, which is the name of our theory, and we write this sign that is, it's like a sideways T. And we read it entails, it forces, okay? Harmonious lavology, our theory, the axioms that we have mentioned, they enforce T1, theorem 1, which is everybody is loved by at least one person. Again, this is not about love, this is about logic, guys, all right? If you're bothered by it, you have very good reason to, but this is just a toy theory. So, what does that mean when I say it entails it? It means that for every possible model I can imagine, for every possible model I can imagine of the theory, T1 holds. T1 is the case. It is true. And what do I mean by true? I don't mean, oh, it is entailed, it has a proof somewhere. No. I mean, I can see it exactly in every possible model of the theory. I can observe it. It is a fact of the model. And we encode it by using the double turnstile, this inverted T with two sides. And I say it is modeled. And I can read, if M, any model, models our theory, then that model models T1. Why? Because T1 is entailed by my theory. Or else, what is the purpose of entailment? How do we define entailment to begin with? We define entailment in exactly this way. If every model you can think of the theory verifies that theorem, then it is a theorem. And there's a lot more to be said about that when you go to higher order logics, but for simple first order logic that we use, this is totally the case. Any questions so far? Is this complicated or too easy? I'm really not sure. If it is too complicated, I can go slower. If you have questions, let me know. Okay, I take it that the distinction between the entailment, which is a proof in what we called truth number one, or we're gonna let go of this naive thing that we said in the beginning, truth one and truth two. We're gonna call it now a modeling. Professionals call it it's a syntactical entailment versus a semantic entailment. So the first kind, the proof, is syntactic. So this has to do with syntax, and this has to do with semantics. Okay, so this is what we call truth now. This is truth. This is out there in the world to be explored, whereas the syntax has to do with the inner dynamics of the system that we have. It has a proof in the system. So, a valid argument or a valid proof is a proof that is correctly deduced with very approved and very verifiable and very accepted logical moves. It's a deductive argument that is entailed from the theory. This is what we call a valid argument. Whereas a sound argument is a valid argument that is very good and very nice. It's entailed in the theory, it has a proof, but also it holds in the model. So this is entailment, this is syntax, this has to do with a proof, and being sound has to do with having a model, being observed out there in whatever model, in whatever thing that you're trying to model. Okay? So a logical fallacy, which is what we're talking about today, it violates validity. It violates the first case. It violates the order of the steps that you take to make your proof. I am violating the syntactical rules of the language, of the formal system. I am not talking, when I say logical fallacies, about the truth or the model or what's out there. I am not concerned. All what concerns me, frankly speaking, when I say logical fallacy, is the logical moves that you are doing, whether the argument is valid or not. I am not about whether the argument is sound or not. Let's avoid saying true when we mean valid. Some people say, oh, 1 + 1 = 2 is a true statement. A true in what model? I cannot use the word truth anymore without mentioning what model am I talking about. And here I go back to John's famous sentence when he says, in the model of quantum mechanics, every particle is a wave. We only have waves, we don't have particles. Or in the model of general relativity, we have fields, and the gravitational field and the space-time is bending. Okay, so in that model, what is the truth? Yes, I can speak of that, but I cannot speak of truth when I do not have the model. I need to specify what the model I'm talking about is, and then I can move on. I will stop here if anybody has a question. Members of the audience, please, if you want, raise your hand if you have anything to participate with, or if you have any question, please let me know. And if you haven't yet, please follow the link in the top of the room, because I'm going to start playing videos and we're going to start having fun. It will be a nice comic relief for all of us. So if you want, please click on.
I'm dripping wet and taking a pause from in the warm California sun here from washing my car to ask. And I'm sorry I'm not able to follow along. I'm going to have to go back and do my homework and watch the video later. But I'm already kind of wondering about things. I mean, one of the things that I've become particularly interested in is the idea that appeal to authority is always a logical fallacy. It is a logical fallacy. I don't know if you agree with that. I think you agree with that. And I understand that doesn't mean that it's wrong to appeal to authority in some situations. But I'm also still kind of, are we going to get to see where that really makes contact with, because I love the entailment thing, as you know, and I think I'm, completely following you there. But where that all kind of makes contact with the business of entailments and soundness of arguments and so on. You're going to talk about the fact that fallacies aren't always wrong. They're just fallacies.
Oh, I got you, sir. That's exactly why I spent 10 or 15 minutes talking about this distinction between validity and soundness. Because I really want to drive the point that when I say logical fallacy, I'm talking about the entailments of the theory. You can make all sorts of claims and they can be totally invalid, right? You can make all sorts of erroneous moves and then end up with a true statement at the end. A true meaning what? Meaning it is verified, it's an observable fact of your model. But when I say logical fallacy, I'm not talking exactly about that. And I have a slide about the fallacy of appeal to authority just for you, sir. So please, enjoy the ride as I go through this one. All right. Any other business before we move on? So the main idea here is to split our brains between truth about the system and truth about the model. That is colloquially said.
I just want to report that Maria in the chat asks, how can you prove that your logical model is truth?
How can I prove that my logical model is truth? Again, we cannot do that because there is a distinction between the entailment, which is what we call proof, and the truth, which is the observed fact. So whether they are equivalent or not, probably this is the question what's asking. So how can I get from this to this and this to this? This is probably sorry, I say this and this, maybe people are not in the, I was talking from validity to soundness and from soundness to validity. I'm drawing and I'm making references to what I draw. So a sound argument is valid, it's given. Okay, so the trip from being valid to being sound, this is given, this is by definition. So when I have a logical entailment of my theory, I'm expecting that whatever models that theory models that logical entailment. That's expected. And that's probably another point where people have problems. Oh, but you're assuming things of my theory. I hear a lot about, our friends, the flat earthers. Like, oh, but you're assuming things about. No, I'm not assuming. I'm just deducing from what you said. And when I make a logical deduction and then the model doesn't verify that logical deduction, it means that there's a mistake about your logic here. Some of your assumptions are wrong. So it depends on the model really with the condition moving down. The condition moving up is a little bit trickier. And simply said, you look at the model and then you engineer the axioms based on it. Okay, and I don't want to talk about that about science. We're going to have another room specifically about how is it that scientific logic is made. But just to answer the question, some of the direction from validity to soundness is a little bit tricky. It requires some things to do, but from soundness to validity, this is completely given. If you are sound, then you are valid 100%. All right. So let us do a little bit of an exercise. So can someone think of an argument that is valid and sound? 100%. Just any argument, anything that you think is valid and sound at the same time.
How about something like the Earth rotates because of the Coriolis force, the Foucault pendulum?
So the Earth rotates. So here we have the Earth is rotating, and this is your conclusion. So this is at the end. Earth rotates. And then you said it's because of the Coriolis. So Coriolis.
And there's probably things that I would have to add to that, but that's just the sketch of what I'm
implies
proposing.
the Earth rotates. Like that, this is not enough, of course, because people can ask about what this is. They can ask whether this is, correct or not. They can ask all sorts of questions. But I understand what you're saying. So here, plus other premises. So plus physics, I'm gonna write. Okay. So something that looks like that, Coriolis effect is observed, plus all the other physics we know. A logical entailment of it is the Earth rotates. That's good. That's fine. That's perfect. Let's take something that is a little less complicated, shall we? Maybe let's say valid and sound. All cats are mammals. Mammals, let's say, give birth. Therefore, cats give birth. They don't lay eggs. That's what I mean to say. So that's a valid reasoning. This looks fine. If I replace cats and mammals by any other words, they should be fine. So all cats are mammals. Mammals give birth. This means cats have to give birth 100% of the times. This is not an option to agree with or not. This is just an entailment of the theory. And every model that you come up with for the theory has to agree with this conclusion. You cannot say this conclusion models the theory, but then say, oh, I don't accept this. You can't. This is not an option. Can someone think of a statement or of something that looks like this simple proof or simple argument where it is valid, but it is not sound? So it is a nice logical move. It is agreed upon, but it is not verified in the model. What is the model? It is the universe we live in. Let's agree that we're talking about everything that we can observe.
I'm gonna try to say something. If it's very stupid, tell me, because I didn't follow. But what I got is that if we start with an argument, all cats are mammals, you started with a correct argument. I don't know what's the right terminology for this, correct, true, or something. What if the logic exists, but I start with a false statement? So
that's exactly what we want. Yes, we want it to be logical, but not sound. Absolutely.
Okay, so all cats have blue eyes. All cats have blue eyes. All cats are all cats have blue eyes. All mammals have blue eyes. Cats are mammals, so all cats have blue eyes. Is it? It's logically sound, but it does not rely on a fact that all mammals have blue eyes.
So all mammals have blue eyes. What's the second part? What's the second premise?
Cats are mammals.
Cats are mammals.
All cats have blue eyes. So cats have blue eyes.
So cats have, sorry, I can't write properly, have blue eyes. Yeah, that's perfectly logical. This
Yes,
follows the same structure that we saw in part one. This is absolutely the same structure. However, the conclusion at the end is just not the case. It is not a sound conclusion, but it is perfectly valid from that point of view.
yes,
Very
but
good.
the sound conclusion because comes from a not sound introduction or statement at the beginning, right? Because not
Well,
all cats have blue
of
eyes.
course, if you start the whole purpose of having logic is if you start with valid and sound statements that you should and you make logical steps, then you should be reaching a sound and valid conclusion. But of course, when you reach somewhere that is not sound, it means that you have started with a premise that is not sound. It doesn't have to be though, because technically speaking, I can start with meaningless premises as well. They're not wrong, they're just meaningless. I can say, for example, feathers, all feathers are mathematicians, and all mathematicians, let's say, are blue. This means all feathers are blue. Well, what does that even mean? Like, you want to check the validity of this. The validity. This is absolutely valid. But if you want to check for the soundness of this, then where do you start? All feathers are math? What is that? What are you talking about? Like, this is not even wrong. This is not even unsound. It's meaningless. It's even worse. It's meaningless here. And so this is still valid. This is still valid. All A's are B's. All B's are C's. Therefore, all A's are C's as well. No problem. So this is also a valid argument. It's just not sound. It's just not the case in the world. Of course, all feathers are blue. That's not the case. Okay. So, can we think of an argument that is sound but not valid? This case here. See who is keeping attention from the beginning. For the third case. So, by the way, I forgot this. Thank you, Patricia. That was a very good example. So, case number 3 here. Sound but not valid. Hello, Ben.
Hey, I've been driving. I've not been able to join in, but so I've missed a chunk of it. But sound but not valid. Does that mean the axioms are faulty, but the sequence of logical steps are correct? Is that what you mean by that?
It's the other way around. It's
Oh, the other
that
way around.
you are making perfect. You are talking about the model in a very faithful way. So you are being sound, but you are making illogical steps. Can you make such a case? So the case you're talking about is case number 2, where it is valid but not sound. We want sound but not valid. LT in chat is absolutely correct. If you go back to the beginning of the presentation, we said that being sound necessitates you being valid. So to be sound, you have to be valid, plus you have to talk faithfully about the model. You have to be verified. You have to be modeled by some model at least. So this is not possible. This is not possible. And if you do, if you insist on making it, do you know what we call you? We call you a fallacy. This is what a logical fallacy is. This is at least one type. You are committing a fallacy if you are insisting. Okay? This is where the fallacy happens. Of course, it can happen earlier.
So let me just. Because it does. I guess I liked what you just said. I think it cleared up most of what I was wondering about. But it strikes me that I should be able to put together an illogical argument to reach the conclusion that cats have 4 legs, um, or something. I
Well,
mean,
of
take
course you
something
can.
that is sound, right? So but that is in other words a case of an invalid argument leading to a sound result, isn't it not?
By definition, no. Because if I go back now, I will delete everything. Let's save that. It didn't save. Yeah, forget about it. So if you go back to slide 7, a deductive argument is sound if and only if it is both valid and all of its premises are actually true. So you cannot be invalid
So
but sound. It's just a matter of definition.
Okay, so it's not enough to point to the fact that cats do have 4 legs. Forget about the, let's suppose that was really the case. It wouldn't be enough to point to that to say that my conclusion was sound. It has to be valid first, and then it can be sound.
That's the only way where I'm talking to you. If you are not making valid points, even if you are speaking complete truths, as a logician, I will not talk to you. You are making a fallacy. You are making a mistake, even when you are making sense.
Okay,
that
is really helpful. Please proceed.
And of course, the fourth case here is the case where it is neither sound nor valid. And here you can go wild. Here you can just say anything.
You're in a flat earth room.
Oh yeah. Here you can let your imagination go loose and write whatever it is that you want and make whatever logical inference you want. You are completely free, but you are also making fallacies. Okay? Because you are not valid. This is my point. Whether you are speaking...
This is a Clubhouse specialty, or this is where Clubhousers succeed the most, in this fourth one.
Oh yeah, I mean, we've seen very bad rooms, you and I, in this on this app, specifically when people are debating politics and religion. They love living in this zone, which is sad, but our duty is to at least let people know that you are living in a very ugly zone here in the middle of the diagram. So my diagram got erased because I quit, but I'm hoping that you got the idea. Buckle up. Is there any other question before we start the fun? I'm gonna start playing videos, and we're nearly done. Just 5 more videos, and we're gonna have some laughs about politicians. Deep Posits MB. You're asking language models too. I'm not sure what the question is. Cars drive on roads. Cars have 4 wheels. Cars were meant for vehicles with 4. I'm not sure if you can come up and just explain your argument or the question. Okay, here you are. Hello, sir.
How you doing? Hey,
hello.
Just joined. Thank you. I was just wondering if that would be an example, like those premises. I might have made the same mistake that you were mentioning.
Can you tell me the premises again one more time?
If the first premise is cars, we have to assume for a second that all cars have 4 wheels, which isn't true. But so if you assume if cars have 4 wheels, I forgot the example. Sorry. If cars drive on roads, cars have 4 wheels, then assuming that the claim would be that roads were meant for vehicles with 4 wheels. Would that be an example, or did I make the same mistake?
That's an example for which case you're talking? 1, 2, 3, or 4?
For, I believe, 3, the one not sound but valid.
Not sound but valid. I'm not sure if this is valid. Let's revisit it, you and I together. All cars have 4 wheels. Cars drive on roads. Therefore, roads are made for 4-wheel drives, for 4 wheels.
Yeah, correct. And if for the argument, assume that cars, like all cars, the definition of a car has something that has 4 wheels.
Yeah. So this is premise 1. If you're following me on Jitsi, I put that as premise 1. So your argument reads as follows. Premise 1, all cars have 4 wheels. Premise 2, cars drive on roads. The conclusion is roads are made for 4-wheel vehicles. I don't know how you reached that conclusion. So for it to be valid, it needs to have a certain structure so that it is valid, so that it follows deductively. So in the example I gave, all cats are mammals and all mammals are blue, therefore all cats are blue. This is completely not true, but it is valid because I'm moving from the general to the specific. So I'm saying all A's are B's, all B's are C's, therefore all A's have to be C's. Whereas in your argument, there is no premise, the way we wrote it, the way we said it. There is nothing about the road being made for a certain purpose. You just assumed that this follows from the argument. And this is a perfect example of a logical fallacy, sir.
Okay, no, I appreciate that. That makes sense now. I joined in late.
No problem, no problem. Thank you very much. And in fact, thank you for the example, because this is exactly what we're talking about today. So we're talking about these jumps in reasoning where it looks like you're making a very good point, but in reality, you're not making the point you're trying to make. You're making a point that is sideways. It is not the case that we are, it has nothing to do, at least. It could be true, like it could be roads are made for four-wheel vehicles. Absolutely, it could be the case. But what you've said, the premises that we've mentioned, do not drive to the conclusion. And this is exactly what a logical fallacy is. This is a textbook case. Sorry, I'm not saying this because I want to make fun of you. I'm just using it as an example.
Yeah, no, I appreciate it. Thank you.
So yeah, this is a textbook case of what politicians do every day. So without further ado, buckle up. If you are on Jitsi, please enjoy. If you are not, please click, because you will not be able to experience the videos with us any other way. I tried to make the audio route to Clubhouse, but then it caused all sorts of problems. So I'm really sorry. If you haven't clicked on the link in the top of the room, and enjoy. Fallacy number one is the hasty generalization fallacy. Here it comes. So I took examples from Donald Trump, not this round, but the previous one when he faced Biden in 2020. So this is from one of their debates.
The fact is that everything he's saying so far is simply a lie. I'm not here to call out his lies. Everybody knows he's a liar.
Okay, let's hear that one more time.
The fact is that everything he's saying so far is simply a lie. I'm not here to call out his lies. Everybody knows he's a liar.
All right, did everybody hear that? Was the sound good? I'm only asking because this is the first time I tried this. Last time it failed. Okay, cool. So you see here, Biden is accusing Trump and saying, everything you say is a lie, 100%. And this is a fallacy. Why is this a fallacy? And we call it hasty generalization. Because he did not take the time to explain why everything Donald Trump said was a lie. If he had taken the time and listed thing number one, thing number two, thing number three, thing number four, all of those, and then proved each and every one that he was in fact lying, then it wouldn't have been a fallacy. But it's a fallacy because the premises that he gave are lacking. He gave none, actually. He just said, you're a liar. And that is just not the case. No human being can lie all the time. In fact, if you're lying all the time, I can still, use that as useful information. But we don't know that about Donald Trump. We know that he lies sometimes, in which case you better, if you want to accuse him of committing that fallacy, you better say where he committed it. That's another thing, by the way. People like, when they hear about these logical fallacies, they memorize the names and they start throwing them in debates left and right. Whenever you mention the fallacy, please make sure that you mention where it was committed and why. Just mentioning the name of the fallacy and throwing it out there, it's not what we're here for. We are here to understand where the mistake happened. So please take the time, instead of pointing the fingers like these two gentlemen, who are apparently one of the two best gentlemen in the USA. They are running for president at the time, and both of them succeeded. Now we have Trump again. So this is what a hasty generalization is. All right, it's just jumping to the conclusion before you have listed enough premises. Video number two.
Well, he wants to shut down this country, and I want to keep it open.
Let's see that one more time.
Well, he wants to shut down this country, and I want to keep it open.
This is a textbook example of what we call the false dichotomy fallacy. Why is this a fallacy? Because the premises that you have listed, one of them is poisoned by saying that, You only have two choices. Now, do we really have only two choices? Was it ever proven? No. He just said, Biden wants to destroy this country. I'm here to keep it open. That's it. And that is a fallacy. You cannot just keep us choosing between two options. One of them is complete destruction and one of them is heaven, when you haven't proven any of those. You haven't proven that your country and your rule is heaven, and you haven't proven that the other one is complete hell. You just said it. It could be the case. It is very much could be the case. But have you proven it? Are you being valid here? Did you list all the premises and examine them carefully? No. Therefore, you are committing a fallacy. I'm not about the real world here. I'm not about truth. I'm about being valid. So he could be saying complete truth, but he hasn't mentioned his reasons. He hasn't proven it, which is why he's committing a fallacy. Any comment from everybody?
So I wonder. I mean, in a case like this, I think it's maybe I'm just not thinking it through carefully enough. But calling this a false dichotomy seems to open the door to just needing a logical fallacy for all sorts of things that fall into the same category, which is just saying something that hasn't been demonstrated. A false, this is I see how this is a false dichotomy, but more importantly than that, it's just making a statement that hasn't been demonstrated. And it strikes me that, I don't know why it's important actually to drill down to the dichotomy level just to say, that you're introducing an argument based on a premise that simply hasn't been demonstrated.
But that is the case for every logical fallacy. So the definition of a fallacy is mentioning a conclusion and believing it is true without proving it. Whether you give a wrong proof of it or whether you have absence of proof altogether, it's the same thing, from a logical perspective. You can say we don't need to detail all of these. And I'm with you, we don't need to detail all of these. It's just fun to do so.
Well, I just wonder, I mean, do you feel, and I guess the thing is that when you start saying, okay, this is a false dichotomy, then the implication is that there is a name for every possible logical fallacy. And that strikes me as a pretty difficult thing. Do you think that there is a name for every possible logical fallacy?
I don't want to commit a hasty generalization while answering you. I have not checked, right? I know that there's hundreds of them. And at the end of this presentation, I will give you the link to where you can find them. But I'm not sure if there's a name for each and every one of them. I don't know. I know that there's a lot of them, to the point where if you know at least 50% of the names, you are very safe. Like these are nice things to know for people. If you are a public speaker, if you are a manager somewhere, it's very good for you to know these tactics at least, or these traps, so that you can at least avoid falling in the most common ones.
Well, that makes sense, I guess, but it does strike me that one wants to always be able to fall back on, your premise hasn't been demonstrated. It's that simple.
Yeah, that's so there's a fallacy. I'm not going to talk about it, but there's a fallacy called non sequitur, which translates from Latin, and it means it doesn't follow. And it's a joke between people who deal with philosophy and logic that this fallacy is just every fallacy. Essentially, the point is that your argument does not follow. But we reserve it for example, for when the premise is completely unrelated to the conclusion. So we reserve it for that case. But you can say, a logical fallacy is whenever the conclusion doesn't follow. So it's kind of redundant, or in some way. All right. Any other comment? Is anybody surprised that we can fish a lot of fallacies from a political debate, or are you guys already informed that this is happening on a daily basis? I promise I'm not fishing. If you want, we can have fun. I can pick any other video, and we can stop at every 2 seconds, and there will be a fallacy made. And this is a sad day when you realize that it's our universe is full of lies like that and incompetent people. But this is what people respond to, and so yeah. Any other thing, or should I move to example 3? Let's move to
More
example 3.
videos.
More videos, let's go. All right. Finally, appeal to authority. John Monicrot, are you ready? Let's go.
Masks make a big difference. His own head of the CDC said if we just wore masks between now, if everybody wore masks in social distance between now and January, we'd probably save up to 100,000 lives. It matters.
And they've also said the opposite. They've also said
no serious person said the opposite.
They've
No
also said, well, look
serious
at Dr. Fauci. Dr. Fauci said the opposite.
He did not say the opposite.
We got a
He said
little
very
bit more than a
strongly,
minute left in this
masks
segment.
are not good. Then he changed his mind. He said masks.
Let's hear this one more time.
Well,
Masks make a big difference. His own head of the CDC said if we just wore masks between now, if everybody wore masks in social distance between now and January, we'd probably save up to 100,000 lives. It matters.
And they've also said the opposite. They've also said
no serious person said the opposite.
They've also said, well, look
serious
at Dr. Fauci. Dr. Fauci said the opposite.
He did not say the opposite.
We got a
He said
little
very
bit more than a
strongly,
minute left in this
masks
segment.
are not good. Then he changed his mind. He said masks.
So, the big debate about appealing to authority. Appealing to authority means it's a fallacy when you used an expert's opinion, or any other person for that matter, because who's an expert, right? To justify a claim. So just because an expert said so, it means it is the case. And guess what? This could be sound in some situations, in some models, using some logics. Hint here, the scientific one. I'm not going to say anything more. I'm just going to say you need to pay to get that. And your definition of truth has to pay. All right? It's not going to remain the classic definition of truth. You have to pay the price to use expert's opinion. But as long as you haven't paid that price I'm talking about, if you just say someone said so, it means it is the case. You are committing a logical fallacy from the validity point of view. From the validity point of view, experts can be wrong. From validity point of view, experts can make mistakes, and they have in the past. And any appeal to any authority is on its own a fallacy. You are making a non-valid step in your logic when you say experts have said, therefore it is the case. Again, in another logic, in the scientific world, can we do that? Can we not do it? Is there a mechanism where we allow it? By the way, I discovered a paper by a philosopher and a logician, Jean Goodwin. She's American. I believe somewhere in, is it Colorado? I forgot actually. But this is a paper from 2011. You are more than welcome to check. She's trying to solve this problem. She's trying to mention some conditions under which appeal to authority works, and this is a good thing to do, and this is a valid way to do it. And I don't, like you can take a look at the paper, and then you can take a look at the comments on the paper, and then you can talk about this. We will. When we talk about the scientific logic, I will detail exactly what is it that I'm talking about. But just from a logical point of view, this is a fallacy. You cannot say a person said that, therefore it is the case. What you really have to do is a person said that, and here is their proof. Here is what we are looking at. Here is exactly how they got that result. And then we examine the way they got the result itself, not what they said or what they didn't say. We examine what they actually have done. And then if we can repeat the work and so on, and then, in the scientific sort of method, this establishes truth. If you're not convinced, and if you think truth is a very messy thing, I am with you. This is not something clean here. But I'm just explaining the logical side of things here. And yes, I'm going to shut up now and wait for your questions. I bet we can have a conversation about this one.
I put a link to that paper in the chat.
Oh, thank you, John. That's wonderful. Said Muhammad, it's not only about quoting the work, it's about discussing the work itself. So it's not by saying, oh, an expert said this and here is the paper. Einstein said this in his 1905 paper. There you go, that's true. Not necessarily. Einstein wrote to his friends and to his... Not everything Einstein wrote is true. And that appeal is a fallacy. Now, if you want to discuss what Einstein said, you can take that statement and then, argue for it from another point of view, from a scientific point of view, from a spiritual point of view, from whatever point of view you want. But the mistake is just to stop there and say, here's what they said, here's the reference, therefore it is the case. If you follow that method, and only that method with no, additions, I can prove any claim you want for you. Today, with the internet, I can prove every single claim you think of. The craziest things you haven't even imagined, I can find papers for them, right? And then prove them for you. And if I don't, guess what? I'm going to ask ChatGPT to write one. And if ChatGPT is not a legal person yet and will be probably in some, years, I'm going to make it myself. I'm going to write a paper myself and say, I'm an expert at this. Here you go, right? So it is not about just mentioning. So some people, I'm glad that you mentioned it, because some people make that mistake. I'm sure you haven't, but some people make that mistake when they say, oh, but I have the reference. Yeah, that's nothing. Just you having the reference doesn't add any validity to your argument. We need to hear the actual argument that the person has used, and then we can discuss the argument itself. Hello, sir. Mr. Hussam ad-Din,
Yeah.
are you with us?
I was going to point out, I thought that's what Syed was saying, was that, you can quote experts and be like, this expert said this thing. But when he says quoting their work seems to mean to be more specific about what that person actually did, where that person said it. Was it in a letter to a friend, or was it in an academic paper? I thought that was the point there.
Yeah, I know it was the point, and he expanded on his answer also in chat. He says people quote the experts as if they're quoting the Bible, and I'm guessing what he means by is that it's absolute truth. It's not to be criticized or negotiated, and that's absolutely the case. Yes, absolutely. I know exactly that Said didn't make the mistake himself, but I'm just using that to expand on the point. Just mentioning the point or mentioning the reference or proving someone's authority in the subject doesn't prove anything from a logic standpoint. Again, if you are a member of the scientific community and you follow the scientific method, that scientific method, the definition of truth there is built on agreement. And or at least one big part of it is that the people, verify each other's work, and they do double-blind corrections and double-blind commentary and so on and so forth. And so if you subscribe to that, then you can say, of course, that is the truth. Yes, sure. But you have to then pay the price of saying, oh, this is not eternal. And it doesn't convince anybody if you don't submit to that premise. And this is where people who are outside of science, this is one of their criticisms, and they're absolutely right. You have to subscribe to the fact that a collection of scientists know what they're doing. If you believe that those collection of scientists are willingly committing fraud, then I can't convince you. What I have to do is to go take you and then teach you for 25 years about what they're doing, and then take you to the actual, physics labs and pay hundreds of millions of dollars to make you see that what they said is the truth. And then even then you can still have problems by saying, oh, but all these theories they have invented, and since they are, a student of that school, and they have all the reason to commit fraud, and that they can commit fraud forever, and so on and so forth. I can never convince you 100% of that truth. But if you subscribe to that premise, and we're going to talk more about the logic of science when we have a room about that specifically. Just wanted to lay that out there. It is a logical fallacy. That's it.
Although I'd like to believe that, there are cases of fraud, like in South Korea, or in very simple cases where teams, as in my case, we had a disagreement with the research team on whether or not we should publish. And now the publication goes forward, it gets published, we have to retract it, all this drama happens. There are safety measures in place, but unfortunately, I don't mean to be cynical. I'm skeptical, but sometimes it seems that in academia, ideas only progress as quickly as funerals, something I heard early on and often resonates, especially now when we see the average age of principal investigators is increasing. So, in a time when we're looking for new ideas and new things, it's a great time to say, hey, maybe we should do science, the social part of it, a little bit differently because we got the protocol down. We just have to align all the other pieces. So, that's all.
Absolutely. And again, this is a logical fallacy. When you appeal to an authority, it is a burden. You have to prove that that authority doesn't have interest in committing fraud. And today, more than ever, you're absolutely right. Scientists, probably in some circles, they have interest in committing willful fraud, or if they are, let's say, good people out there, and then the company or the whatever who is trying to publish let's say, studies that boost their business. I don't know. Pepsi Cola wants to convince people to drink more. And so what they do is they say, oh, that the sugar that they have in their drinks is I don't know, helpful for you, or it doesn't cause anything or whatever. And so they get the team that will do this work for them. And if a team refuses, then they will get another team. And so you can totally publish fake science nowadays, more than ever, actually. In the past, it was a little bit harder because the publication mechanism was slower, but nowadays it costs nothing. And so, yes, absolutely, we have to be very careful when we appeal to authorities. And yeah.
Yeah, and so here's an interesting twist. So in the world of logical fallacies, movements like decentralized science or DeSci is an interesting idea because it really puts back into the public kind of this gatekeeping status. Normally we had gatekeeping status as, hey, look, these principal investigators, they have labs, they have reputations, and so they have precedence to get those grants. But now this particular movement shows that, hey, some of those risky ideas, some of those things that perhaps even logical fallacies in the first place presented, stopped us from looking further. And so that's something that I find really exciting because there's a lot of hypotheses to explore, but we don't do that much exploring. So that would be something nice to see going forward.
Absolutely. And, in the scientific discourse group, people are doing a wonderful job between John and Ben and Hero and Sam Tomasibi, who's not with us today. They're doing wonderfully, actually, in educating people. I'm really grateful for them and what they're doing. And by the way, John's room is every Friday, and he continues to talk about quantum mechanics. So if you are up for that, sign up to the Scientific Discourse Club, follow John. He opens his room exactly at 17:30 GMT, same time as this room every Friday. So yeah, absolutely, Ayo. And hopefully our educational system will move forward into informing people how to do good research, which is all the more harder now with the spread of misinformation being as fast as the spread of actual information. All right, John, I haven't heard your voice about the appeal to authority thing. Is what I said appealing to you, or not really? You are the authority here.
Yeah.
Is it authoritative enough?
No, I think I totally get it. I'm satisfied. At first I was kind of put off because I thought it was really I think it's while it may be a logical fallacy, I think it's also fair to say that it is evidence. It's admissible evidence in an argument when you're appealing to somebody who who you can demonstrate there's pretty good reason to believe isn't trying to mislead you, who really is an expert, who says the things they say because they really do know the topic. Doesn't make it not a logical fallacy, but it also doesn't make it not a reasonable thing to bring up in an argument. I think that's my position on it.
Here's the key word you said: reasonable. That's nowhere in what we're saying.
Right,
I'm
exactly.
drawing distinctions between what's absolutely allowed and what's not allowed. I'm not saying, oh, this could be done under certain conditions. This is what, by the way, Goodwin tries to do in her paper and others, right? And this is what we can talk about more when we talk about the scientific method and the conditions under which it operates. All right.
Right. And I see Goodwin actually listing all of the little evaluations. Is this person, how much of an expert is this? How reliable? And all of these things that seem to be deviating from kind of strict logical um, things, but are certainly the kinds of things I think about when I appeal to an authority. It's important that the authority be genuinely an authority, genuinely somebody that's not hasn't got an axe to grind, etc. And you can never prove that, so it's just an argument. It's evidence. It's like my as an atheist acknowledgement of the fact that the incredible beauty of nature is strong evidence for the existence of God. Um, I don't find it compelling, but I acknowledge that that's a reasonable thing to point to if you believe in God and want to justify that.
So Sayyid Muhammad says, isn't appealing to Goodwin an appeal to authority? No, actually, I'm not, because, and again, I'm sure you're kidding here, but let me expand on this just because it's a very interesting place to be. So I'm not using that to prove or not prove anything. I'm just saying there's this person who has made a search somewhere. So mentioning the name of an expert, quote unquote, to expand the search is different from mentioning the name and the actual work of the expert to absolutely assert a certain point. All right. I know you haven't
exactly.
made that. I know you haven't made that error. I'm just expanding on what you're saying.
Yeah, that's a great point. So, for example, I'll say in biotech, at least, replication is almost necessary if you want to do anything commercial. So you can't really take anyone's word for it because there's this replication crisis. And so when bringing up an expert, like let's say I bring up Dr. Michael Levin, and I mention his work on bioelectricity, that's like a reference, as you said, to extend the search to say, okay, now we can look at all the works that this person has done. We can kind of do almost like a little audit and let everybody else do catch up, kind of like in a conference. Let us recall the following. And so there's this kind of, I think the public, at least from public engagement perspective, is missing that etiquette training or something like that in academia. Whereas I think some of the public sees the way we speak as too ivory tower. So normalizing some of that language is super critical. So I really like your focus on kind of like what is the scientific method, testing against hypotheses and all that. So really appreciate the room so far.
Thank you, and I hope that other people enjoying it as well. Hello to everybody who's just joining us. Good to see everybody here. If you want to follow with us, please click on the link on top of the room and just say no, join in browser if you don't have the app, and then you should be able to see my screen and listen to the sounds and the videos that we are playing. Okay, 2 more, and I'll leave you to continue your search on your own. Again, there's hundreds of those fallacies, and exploring them would be a very nice game to play if you have kids or if you have anybody you're teaching. Just sitting down with them for 10 minutes. Even if you have, let's say, old parents and they are from a certain political inclination, you can sit down with them and start questioning. You don't have to tell them your views are completely unfounded, but you can start questioning whenever you hear a presidential debate or someone speaking in the media. Asking these questions is it's a very nice game, and it should not lead to the usual fights that happen over Thanksgiving. We are nearing Christmas now, and everybody is going nuts. So, number 4. Let's hear ad hominem.
You were a senator, and
You're
by
the
way,
worst
you were
president
vice...
America has ever had.
Hey, Joe, you were a senator, and
You're
by
the
way,
worst
you were
president
vice...
America has ever had.
Hey, Joe.
So Joe Biden says you are the worst president that America has ever had. And again, this is a fallacy.
Well, that
Because
was Donald Trump saying that he was vice president under the worst president that America's ever had, I think.
okay, so let's say that they both committed it.
well, but so far I just want to be clear. So far, we have no evidence that they both committed it. Well, but maybe the rest of it does.
I can take you back to number 3. But absolutely. Here you go. Number 3. One more time.
Masks make a big difference. His own head of the CDC said if we just wore masks between now, everybody wore masks and social distance between now and January, we'd probably save up to 100,000 lives. It matters.
And they've also said the opposite. They've also said
no serious person said the opposite.
Well, look
serious
at Dr. Fauci. Dr. Fauci said the opposite.
He did not say the opposite.
We got a little bit more than a minute left in this segment.
Masks are not good. Then he changed his mind. He said masks.
So I didn't mean that they both don't commit fallacies. I just meant that the particular fallacy you're talking about, you said that Biden did it. It's Trump that did it.
The particular fallacy is the appeal to authority in number 3, and they both did it. And if you are very keen...
No, but I think we're talking about ad hominem now.
Yeah, we are. So if you want another... So you want me to seek another ad hominem?
No. I don't doubt. I was just correcting the fact that in this particular clip, it's Donald Trump, not Joe Biden, who is doing it.
I accept. It could be the case. I think they both did it. I just wanted to come back to that number 3 video. If you are very keen, you would have listened to Joe Biden respond to what Trump said by saying no serious person has ever said that. And let's see if any of you know. That's another fallacy, but this is not a fallacy that we talk about in this presentation. Can you pick up what fallacy is this when he says there is no serious person who has ever done that? What kind of fallacy is that?
So are you suggesting that that's an ad hominem because it's kind of a backhanded way of saying...
Could be. Could be, right? That's one case. Another more textbook name for what he says is the no true Scotsman, Said Muhammad. Yes, you're absolutely right. This is the no true Scotsman fallacy. No true Scotsman says 1, 2, 3. No true Scotsman does that. No true scientist does that. So even if I bring Biden 1,000 scientists who said that, he immediately disregarded all of them from the beginning of the discussion. He's like, no serious person would ever say that. Done. Even if half the population said that, no. So this is a fallacy. You have not even looked at their arguments to see whether they are making a point or not. You just said none of them is serious. And that's another tactic that slips into what politicians say. I don't want to poison you watching the news from now on, but it's a very fun exercise to do once you're aware of these mistakes. We go back to number 4 one more time, just to show the ad hominem. Ad hominem means, by the way, from Latin, to the person or at the person. Hominem is the man, okay? So you are attacking the speaker, their character, their motives. You're attacking everything about them, but you're just not addressing what they are saying. That's an ad hominem. So you're a liar, you're a thief, you're a whatever. It doesn't even have to be, pejorative. You can say, oh, you're an amazing person. It's the same thing. You're just not discussing what they're saying. Please discuss the point and not the person. Let's hear it one more time.
You were a senator. And
you're
by
the
way,
worst president America has ever had.
Oh, okay. You know what? I just misheard it. I'm sorry. All of my comments, I heard Trump saying you were the vice president under the worst president. I didn't realize that it was Biden doing it. So my bad. I take it back.
No problem. If you watch this particular debate, there's hundreds of them. Right? It was very easy to fish for the ones I've picked. And if you watch the other debates as well, even this year, but I did not pick this year's examples on purpose because it's a little bit of a heated debate still. Okay, let's move to number 5. Number 5, I did not pick a video because there's plenty of them simply. I couldn't choose. But it's an ad populum fallacy. And what's an ad populum? Logician Irving Copy, one of the best logic educators and popularizers out there, also American. He defines this fallacy as to arouse the emotion and the enthusiasms of the multitude. So whenever I'm speaking in a certain way to make myself attracted to the public, attractive to the public. So to make the public feel certain emotions, all of these talk about, we are a great nation, we are great people, and I just listed 3 examples here for you of 3 campaign slogans that politicians have used. So the Make America Great Again by Donald Trump, Yes We Can by Obama, and then Kamala Harris, For the People. What do you mean America great again? What do you great relative to what? By whom? Relative to what criteria? Using what mechanism did you prove that America was great and now it wasn't great anymore and you're going to make it great again? There's a lot hidden in here, but nothing is said. It's just to appeal to our emotions. And if you remove America, you put any other country, make, I don't know, Brazil great again. Yeah, that works. Kamala Harris, For the People. Again, she could have been, running in, I don't know, China. She could have been running for the elections in South Africa. For the People works everywhere. This doesn't say anything really. It just feels good. And so this is an appeal to an ad populum. Yes We Can reminds me of Bob the Builder. I don't know what that means. You can do what exactly? Yes, we can. Can we invent another planet and then live on? Can we just do that? Yes, we can. Relative to what exactly? Again, nothing is said. Just said to be feeling good, to arouse our emotions, to drive us into voting. And you will hear, again, millions and millions of these. If you open any presidential rally, any presidential debate, any elections, actually, not only the presidential ones, the speaker will open with an ad populum every single time without fault. You great people, welcome here. We have thousands and thousands. Welcome from all across the world. Welcome from all across the country. And they start naming the places where people come from. Why are you naming the places? Because it feels good when you're at that rally and people name your area. You start clapping. That's exactly what you're not saying anything. You're not proving that you are the best person here. The whole purpose of this debate or this rally or whatever is for you to lay down your plan so that we can listen to what you want to say. Nope, let's not do that. Let's just appeal to people's emotions. I mentioned Irving Copey specifically because there's another definition for this particular fallacy. And ad populum, populum of course means people or the public. There's another definition which says, it's an appeal to whatever the people believe, and so you are rehearsing it back. And there's a slight distinction between the two, which is that when you say an appeal to popular opinion, meaning, let's say, what is the best toothpaste? It's the toothpaste that everybody buys, right? So this is the number one. You see people doing it in ads. Our toothpaste is the number one toothpaste that experts advise. The gel fixes 99.99 whatever of the bacteria, it kills it all, etc., etc. So this appeal here to what the popular believe, it has been voted number one by the customers of I don't know where. This appeal to public opinion like that has been declassified from under ad populum and has been given another name, which is the bandwagon fallacy. So the bandwagon fallacy is where you all jump on the bandwagon. The bandwagon is moving, there's people riding on that bandwagon, and you see it moving, so you just, without reason, you jump on that bandwagon yourself. That's the story behind it. So it has been reserved for those kind of mistakes. They both fit under the same category of appealing to the public.
Yeah, I was just going to, this reminds me, and this may be a little bit of both appeal to authority and ad populum, but I remember as a very young child watching commercials for Trident sugarless gum. And I just thought it was hilarious that the big argument for Trident was that 4 out of 5 dentists recommend Trident sugarless gum for their patients who chew gum. And I was just struck. There's kind of an honesty. There's a certain level of honesty that you have to admire, but it also, because they said for their patients who chew gum, right? But it left me wondering what do the other 5 recommend? Sugarless gum, recommend sugarless, not Trident. Recommend sugarless gum for their patients who chew gum, implying that 1 out of 5 don't do that, which struck me as really bizarre.
I was going to bring up that exact example.
Yeah, is the 5th one a super lobbyist?
Is that right, Andy? Is that one that you carry around with you?
Totally, because it could also be true that 99% of dentists recommend you don't chew gum.
Right.
Well, that's actually what they do. They don't recommend you chew gum because it actually disfigures your teeth over time. So.
That's
There you go.
amazing to me that you picked up that example, though. I always thought I was probably the only person in the world.
Oh no, that's a famous the trident thingy is a famous
No, it is,
case.
but I mean, just kind of recognizing the ridiculousness of it.
It's so they win a huge they win an appeal to authority that is unknown, like dentists in general. They win, some mathematical fallacy somewhere because we were never given the true number of people. Maybe it's only 5 dentists that they asked, and 4 of the 5 kind of recommended the
Yeah,
sugarless
where are
gum.
these surveys happening in medical
Where are
school?
they
Like where?
happening? God knows, right? It's a lie. That's essentially it. A lie. And so yeah, it just sounds good. It feels good. So they win like 10 different fallacies with just that commercial. By the way, commercials are also famous for these things. If you want to watch for fallacies, commercials and ads are just full of our product is the best, other products are shit. You know what I mean? And again, it's like, why can't you just level with the people? And it turns out that that's a very bad strategy. If you're doing marketing and you're a logician, you will never go anywhere. You're gonna have to choose one path or the other, and that is a discussion for another day. Let me take a look at the chat a little bit. Okay, I think we're fine. So this is the end of the presentation today. The main takeaways are, of course, the difference between sound and valid. I remind you that being sound includes validity by definition. Validity is making logical steps, so making logical entailments in a correct way. And sound means you are making logical steps with reference to some model. Some model out there verifies what you're talking about. A fallacy is relative to validity only. So you are making a fallacy, even though your conclusion might be verified by some model later on. That doesn't mean anything because you've missed the validity condition. You are making a fallacy. It is only relative to the logic that we are speaking about fallacies. And if you want more fallacies, I refer you to the Wikipedia page. Just write logical fallacies on the internet and you will find other references. The Encyclopedia of Stanford has a very good entry on logical fallacies. Other websites, there is a website called Thou Shall Not Commit Logical Fallacies, as if that they have a picture of God and they have icons. It's very fun. They have like 30 fallacies over there on the website. Visit it as well if you want to know more. If you want to have fun, just go to YouTube and type your favorite politician logical fallacies, and you will find pages and pages and videos and collections of politicians making logical fallacies. I was surprised myself when I was fishing for clips for this episode today, how easy it was to find that material out there. There is a channel, by the way, for Donald Trump that is entitled Donald Trump making logical fallacies or something like that. Like there's a specific channel dedicated to tracking Donald Trump's fallacies. So you're more than welcome. Here you go. This is the fun. Thank you very much for being here today. And if you have any other questions or discussions, I am here to listen.
One of the things I'm struck by, and I guess that bothers me a little bit, is that while I recognize now, of course, the appeal to authority, fallacy, etc., it's unfortunate in a way that I think it's almost impossible to construct compelling arguments truthfully without committing logical fallacies. And of course, the moment you do commit a logical fallacy, it's really easy for your interlocutor, to basically dismiss everything you're saying because you committed a logical fallacy, which often, and especially I think in the case of appeal to authority, we appeal to authority often when we're, and I guess you're going to get to this when we talk science, for pretty good reasons. And it is, I think, often compelling, reasonable and compelling argument to point to people who are experts and what they've said about something, especially if you say what they've said and the thing they've said is kind of a compelling thing as well. And I know that wouldn't then be a logical fallacy just to say what they've said. But I guess the problem is I'm concerned a little bit about how easy it is to dismiss an entire argument when a component of it is technically a logical fallacy.
What you're uncomfortable with, I'm uncomfortable with as well. And we haven't spoken about the definition of truth yet. Okay, so I just said that there's a difference between logical truth and sound, which means relative to a certain model. But how to establish truth is a completely difficult endeavor. The definition of truth itself is a very contested place. So just to open doors for people here, some people take it true because they read it in a religious book. So one of the main axioms, one of the main ways of thinking, right? Because my religious book says 1, 2, 3, I don't question it. This is taken for granted, and then I move on to the world. Can I say I don't agree with this? Yes, of course. But can I prove it from within the system? No, absolutely. I cannot argue with a religious person based on my definition of truth and their definition. Just because there's many people who worship characters. Taylor Swift has a big following. Andrew Tate had a big following. Jordan Peterson had a big following. Donald Trump has a big... It's like cult behavior. And whatever that person says is the truth, right? They take it like that. This is their definition of truth. And again, I can say, well, I don't agree with that. I can say it causes problems. It's not even good for you to do that. But if they don't agree, I cannot really force their hands. And when we talk about the scientific method, I hold the belief that it is kind of very similar, not to say exactly the same, but it's constructed in a very similar way, because this is the best that we can do. This is my personal belief. We cannot do any better. And when we talk about the definition of truth and meaning, we can expand on that a bit more. If you feel uneasy, it's because there's a lot of details over there. And yeah, I will try to do my best to truncate it in a very comprehensive way, so that people can follow with us along these rooms and kind of get initiated in this space, because it is a technical space. It's not a space that you can just read about it once in a book and then understand the whole thing. It's a little bit technical. You need a lot of skills to get into it, but it's not difficult. Once you get initiated in the language of logic, then it is very easy.
It's straightforward and elementary. I wouldn't say it's easy because it still requires effort. And I just say that because I've been watching a few researchers recently, like interviews, and my wife and I, we worked together at research, and she was saying, look, they keep saying, oh, it's easy. It only took them 10 years. So.
Yeah, I mean, fair enough. It's not easy peasy lemon squeezy, but squeezing lemons is not easy as well. So I don't know if that makes sense. I don't know. I have no idea.
Unless you have a machine that does that, and they invented one, Shama, so khalas, it's easy now.
Maybe.
The lemon squeezing.
You have to calculate all the research that is necessary to produce the machine, though. So if you include all that energy spent, I'm not sure if it qualifies.
It's easy for the end consumer, at least.
Oh,
Can
yeah.
we at least say that?
Yeah, left as an exercise for the student and end consumer.
Absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely, Ayo. Rudin's style. Have you studied with the Rudin's analysis? Are you familiar with the book?
Yeah, Rudin, elementary analysis. Yeah, real analysis. Yeah. That's a pain.
He's notorious for saying, oh, this is left as an exercise for the reader. And then the actual proof is like a 3-page proof. And as students, we were like, oh my God, dude, really? Seriously?
Yeah, personally, I preferred Marsden for analysis, but yeah.
You're doing this every Wednesday?
Yes, our room opens every Wednesday at 5:30 GMT. That is 6:30 Europe time, 7:30 Middle East time, every evening. The group name is called the Scientific Discourse. Let me go to the page now that you've mentioned it. So the last page of this slideshow has all the links. you can join our house, the Philosophy Wednesdays house. Also join the Scientific Discourse house. You can find the Scientific Discourse channel on YouTube, where I will make sure that this presentation and all the others that we make every Wednesday and every Friday, same time, one about physics and one about philosophy. So you can find all of those. If you missed a room, you can find it all on YouTube.
Okay, I have a suggestion. I don't know if I can
Absolutely, go ahead.
suggest it now. Why aren't you using Chatter, which is a much more practical platform where you can we can all see the slides, you can play your videos, and we don't have to go anywhere. It's something that we can do while sitting in a room, in the same room.
You're absolutely right. The whole point was when I wanted to start this project, it was initiated, for me because Chatter existed, and I'm like, yeah, of course, finally we can now share our screen, etc. The problem with Chatter is twofold. One thing is that most people that I know here and that I want them to be in the room are not on Chatter, and problem number two is that it's full of bugs still, so it's very buggy. It doesn't allow people in the audience to hear the room, and these bugs are not fixed yet. So you're absolutely right. I have like 10 different softwares opened here on my computer so that I can cast simultaneously to YouTube and to Clubhouse and fix the recording later. It wasn't easy for me at all to come up with this arrangement. But waiting for Chatter to fix themselves, to fix their bugs. And when they do, and when people pick it up and go there, then I'll be happier. Absolutely. When we go there and then have a nice room that is glitch free, that'd be even way better for me than Clubhouse. But because all my friends are here on Clubhouse, we are stuck with doing it here for now. Hopefully, in the future we'll be casting it directly to YouTube when we have all the technical details done, and that would be even better. So people can just find us and then go follow on YouTube with the sound, with the voice, with the participation, with everything. So yeah, absolutely, you're asking a very good point, but there are some technical difficulties. That's the only reason. Once that's fixed, we will move totally.
I'm depending on you guys who are, because I'm on Chatter. I went there a couple times. And I couldn't find anything I was interested in. I didn't get into it enough even to see the bugs. But when it isn't buggy anymore, everything I know about it tells me that everybody on Clubhouse should move over there en masse. Because Clubhouse sucks. It's just that everybody we like is here.
And it gets worse with every improvement.
It does. That's the weirdest thing. I mean, it really is. I honestly think sometimes that they are doing a sociology experiment. How bad can they make the platform before people just stop coming?
Yeah, that last update they did last summer was questionable, to say the best. But yeah, waiting again for Chatter to fix their bugs so that we don't have to run 5 different softwares to be able to transmit audio and video. Any other thing about the logical fallacies, about logic, about anything we said today, feel free to ask.
I was gonna say, it just sort of dawned, I don't know, I guess never haven't thought about it that much before, but it dawns on me that when somebody points out a logical fallacy, whether they do it rightly or wrongly, they're not really doing anything to promote their argument, right? Like even if they poke holes in my argument, it's like, well, they haven't really furthered theirs. And then the other thing I've realized is, like, in an argument, you could have, like, I could be trying to argue that this thing is true for A, B, and C, right? Now, it could be that it's like a chain, like A, then B, then C, and you could, like, point a hole in B and the whole thing falls apart. But also arguments are often like A plus B plus C. I'm not sure if I'm using the operators right, but like, it's like, okay, well, if you don't like C, then just get rid of C. You still have A and B. So, like, I think what happens a lot in these arguments is like, talking about the shape of the Earth, and it's like, well, there's all this evidence. We can talk about math, and then, by the way, most scientists, and they'll be like, oh, appeal to authority. It's like, well, okay, that last part wasn't really the biggest part of the argument. It might have been the smallest part, but it was just adding on top of it. So even if you take that away, you haven't taken away. But tactically it's used. and like it changes the subject. That becomes what you're talking about. Now you're arguing about whether you're appealing to authority or not. So I just find that interesting. Okay, one more thing. Could it be the case that we're sort of talking about different, like when we're talking about like political debate, or this is like a kind of rhetoric. Like I'm not sure logic really even applies in these cases. I think the reason why you do things like appeal to authority is because it's kind of a shortcut. It's like, well, we don't have time to get into it. Hey, I'm not even an expert. I don't even know myself, but I'm going to rely on this. And you could be like, oh, that's a logical fallacy. But that wasn't the point. Was just to convince enough people in the room that there's reasonable. I guess my point is, it seems like we're talking about like different games, so the rules should be different for each game. Like I guess when it comes right down to it, I don't think you can communicate effectively without committing some kind of fallacy. Like if if you could communicate without fallacy, I don't think it'd be any more convincing. I think it'd probably be less convincing to most people. Is that fair?
Yes. There's a couple of things that you said here really touch on the topic. Let's start from the end there when you said when you use logical fallacies, it's better. It gives you a better result. Absolutely. When you appeal to people's emotions instead of you being dry logical, of course you're going to win the elections. When you appeal to people's fears and then you advertise for your product, of course people are going to buy it. Right? This is absolute. This is what you learn as a logician. You learn that all this logic that you really know doesn't work, because we are not the clever, high beings who are always on duty that we think we are. We are just dumb monkeys with brains that are made of fat and it has electricity in it. Why would that make sense? Right? It's just so there's all sorts of shortcuts to take into our brains and to drive us. Even better, we know that now for a fact, and I said this last time, this logic that we all use, and I'm proudly, exhibiting here, so on and so forth, it participates in 0.0 nothing of our decision. We make our decisions emotionally, and then we get the logic and we back it up with it. We know now, and there's plenty of studies, and we should do a room on free will at some point. There's plenty of studies and clinical trials where people are tested for their choices, even political ones, even ethical ones, even things that we think of ourselves, like we are higher beings, we are human beings, we have ethics, we have politics, we have whatever, economy. These decisions are made in a split second in your deep brain where you don't have access, and then you receive the final result. And because that final result is not, it looks like it's coming out of the blue, it gets rationalized later. And so you start inventing logical reasons to back it up. And the real game here is that as long as you can find logical and sound reasons, go ahead, right? I can't do anything about it. But then if you're doing it out of emotions and you're making logical mistakes, I mean, come on, I gotta point it out. This is the best that we can do, right? I can just point things out for people so that they can change their beliefs at least, or stop making the mistake, or find other grounds for the same belief that they're looking for. Maybe it's helpful, maybe not. I can tell you from experience, I've debated tons of people. I do it as a hobby. And never have I ever heard a debate where people say, oh, you know what, he's making a great point. Oh, I accept what you said. It either ends in 2 minutes or it never ends. Either, I have a question for John and John answers me and I answer him and he's like, oh, no, you make a good point. And then that's it. Or we're going to continue debating for hours because, we're both committed to a certain emotional standpoint and we refuse to communicate with each other. So, yeah, I mean, what was the other point you made? I forgot, actually. I should have written it down. It was something about logic not being translated into politics. Oh, yes. The reason why you feel that logic is distant from the politics and the advertising and everyday life is because logic is a very simple game with very simple rules. This is not to say that it doesn't apply in the real life context. It just says that if you want to apply that simple game, and the simplicity gives clarity, by the way, that's why we love it. So I want things to be very simple so that they are very clear, so that I'm not using words that have hidden meanings. I was very clear, by saying, oh, there's validity and there's soundness and there's whatever. But if you go in English, like if you're writing an essay, if you say this is 100% valid or 100% sound, it's the same meaning. nobody's gonna debate it, right? The colloquial natural languages, we call them, they have all sorts of metaphors and hidden meanings and assumptions. And this is why it looks like it's a different game. So you go into politics and you see all these fallacies and you see all these moves and you say, can we make it into logic? I don't think this is the same thing. The reason is because we haven't put enough effort to translate the complicated world that we live in into this language 100%. So it needs a lot of effort if I'm going to take any statement, any small segment of these, and the ones that I've picked from Donald Trump. It's going to take me a lot of effort to actually lay it down in mathematical logic terms. But once I do it, it's 100% clear for everybody. And this is why it feels like it's a different game. It's because when we speak naturally with each other, we make a lot of assumptions. And this is what we called a warrant in the previous episode, if you remember. So there's a lot of things hidden. There's a lot of things that are assumed that everybody agrees on before we enter a conversation. And 3 hours into the conversation, you might discover that, oh, but wait a minute, this is thing that we've assumed, but it appears that we have not agreed upon it before. So this will only happen in natural conversations. But in logical conversations, you agree on the axioms before you even begin. And so you will never have that problem with the assumptions. But the thing is, once you start with very basic axioms and you start laying down it and you start laying it down, and then you have the derivation rules, and it's very slow until you get to who's the best president of the United States. I'm not sure if I answered your question here, but it is something that we will keep exploring in future rooms. Any other participation? I'm inviting people up.
Well, so I was just going to say, and I think you kind of alluded to this earlier. You'll probably get to it as well. But of course, I mean, one of the things in science is that in some sense it's almost impervious to logic, because there is right out of the starting gate, we simply deny that we're after truth in anything other than the sense that we think that our method will get us closer to the truth, but we deny the idea that we could ever actually find the truth in science, that all we can do is show that something isn't true.
I'm not sure about showing something isn't true. Actually, yeah, we can talk. We can talk about this.
Well, let me just so for instance, and I think you understand this. As you were saying earlier, I can certainly say that within the theory of general relativity, this is true. These are entailments of the theory. These things are logically sound, etc.
Be careful. Be careful.
Yeah.
Entailment is not truth. Entailment is entailment. Truth has to do with the model that you're.
No, you're right. I was using truth.
I just
right. No, I was using it incorrectly. But I mean, the point is I guess what I'm really talking about sound, right? That I can make sound arguments within, and therefore, just as in saying that 1 + 1 is 2, or anything else, it's just as sound as that. And we often think of those things as being truth. So you're right.
I have to stop you one more time. 1 + 1 = 2 is verified by what model exactly? So when you say truth, it's validated by what model?
Well, I meant that it's sound. If I said truth, I made the mistake again.
The truth is the fact that being sound. You're talking about validity.
I'm sorry. No, you're right. I am talking about validity. I just got the two mixed up. Yeah, I know. I'm new at this stuff.
I know, and I'm not trying to be an asshole here. I'm just using what you're saying to re-emphasize the points that we talked about. So when I'm making a valid argument, I'm only making logical entailments. I'm making logical steps that lead to a certain conclusion that was not known before I make that exercise. Okay?
Right.
Right.
When I make sound arguments, I am making those same logical steps to reach the conclusion. But then those logical steps and that conclusion have an application somewhere. They mean something somewhere. They reflect somewhere on a certain model. And if you remember the love thing that I mentioned at the beginning, you could find 3 different situations, 3 different models where our axioms make meaning, they make sense, they are modeled by those models. Whereas if you just say 1 + 1 = 2, it is a true statement. Truth with what model? If you tell me what model it is, I can totally agree or disagree with you. We can go examine the model and see whether 1 + 1 = 2 is in fact verified. And we do have models for the natural numbers. For example, you can have the number line as your model. And if you put the number line as your model, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then you define +1 as making 1 extra step to the right, and you are at number 1, and you make 1 extra step to the right, oops, you are at number 2 now. So now this is the model that verifies my axioms. This is the model that models my, let's say, ZFC, which is the set theory that we use. Okay, so re-emphasizing that there's a distinction. Of course, again, in English, we use the word truth and valid and sound and all of those things all together in the same pocket. And it's not a big deal, but if you want to be careful about what you're doing and if you want to reach certain conclusions and not others, and of course, as we progress in these rooms, we're going to be tackling harder and harder topics. So I just thought to lay that distinction down before we move forward.
So is it correct to say, I was going to say valid, but is it correct to say that?
Oh, you're now you're sidestepping the whole thing. You're using the word.
I am. That's purposefully so. To say that general relativity is a model in the sense that you're talking about models.
Okay, so again, you're using this as you're referring to a scientific thing, and when I use model, in the logic, it works in the opposite sense. You say I only have one model in your science, and that model is the real universe. This is why science is different than any other thing, and I'm kind of putting it alone, because a scientific theory says the only model that we accept is the real world model that we all agree on, the objective universe, the states of the facts.
Well, that's
and
very
now
different.
Whatever theory does not agree, that does not model that, is wrong.
Okay,
the logic works in an opposite way.
That's just very different language than I'm used to. And I think that most scientists would say that what we do in science is create models.
Yes.
And
it's called modeling, but we learn it every day.
Right.
Because why are they using this? It's a misuse of the word, of course. But they can use it because there's only one model out there. They're not doing mathematics where you can imagine many models. Because that, you say, oh, we are tailoring the theory for the model. You never do that in logic. You start with the model. I just made the mistake. You start with the theory and then you look for models. It's the other way around.
So in my case, the way I think about it is Newtonian mechanics is a model that we made up, and general relativity is it's a different model. It's not the same. It's a different model that we made up. Newtonian mechanics, we know, is wrong fundamentally. Andy hates it when I say that, and I can always backtrack and say we'll always use it even though it's wrong. but we know that it's wrong. We don't know that about general relativity yet. The reason we know it's wrong is because it doesn't correctly model what happens in the universe. I wouldn't call the universe a model. I would just call that the thing that we test our models against.
Exactly. But then what happens when you discover that, quote unquote, your model, which is your mathematical system, doesn't work? So it doesn't verify the universe. You throw it away.
Right. Then it's a falsified model.
It even becomes meaningless, which is another distinction we're going to talk about. It's not only wrong, it's just meaningless, because its meaning is defined by its relation with the universe. It's either meaningful or meaningless. It's not, you know what I mean? Science is very particular in the way it's...
So that's weird. So maybe, I'm not sure, maybe we'll get to that when we talk about science, but even Andy, you'll be happy to know that even I wouldn't go so far as to say that Newtonian mechanics is meaningless, even though it's absolutely wrong.
Oh, yes. Again, this is a small distinction. Well, not a small distinction, but when we talk about meaning and how do we define meaning and how we establish it, then it'll be a little bit clearer. The first time my professor said, Newtonian mechanics is meaningless and special relativity is meaningless, I'm like, what are you talking about? Like, of course they are. You can say they're wrong, but because again, we are married to certain meanings in natural language. And when you want to be very careful about things, you got to make small distinctions, just like the validity soundness argument distinction. When you make those distinctions, it becomes absolutely clear that you cannot be doing science and being wrong simply because the sound includes the valid. So I'm gonna say that's all I'm gonna say for today. There's a lot under the rug here, and we're gonna do it when we do the scientific method. Probably we're gonna do scientific method on 2 or 3 episodes because there's a lot of details there. But hopefully you will get the final deep answer for your question then. Any other quick questions, ladies and gentlemen? Any other curious endeavors before we close the room? I just want to emphasize, or to advertise, I want to say one more time, these rooms are happening every Wednesday, 17:30 GMT. And there are other rooms that are happening in the Scientific Discourse house. If you just look for Scientific Discourse on Clubhouse, you will find John Malincrot is our admin. You can follow him, and you will get notifications for when we are live. Both Wednesday, every Wednesday like today, and every Friday in the same time. You can find us on YouTube. Just look for Scientific Discourse, and you can follow the links in the PowerPoint that I have attached. If you just go to the beginning of the chat, I'm gonna copy the chat one more time, and you can just get access to all these links for very quickly, so that you can keep following if you missed an episode. And if you have friends who are interested in these things, whether it's philosophy, perception issues in science, or you want to learn more about science, which is what the Scientific Discourse House do, then please bring those friends with you next time. Alrighty, then we have reached the point where I thank you all very much one more time. See you next week, same time, same place in the Philosophy Wednesdays house. Take care and see you next week. Bye-bye. Thank you all for coming.